Hello and welcome to the Betoota Advocate podcast. My name is Wendell Hussey. I've got Effie Bateman here in the studio today, and we have a special guest today, actually. He's a man who's achieved a hell of a lot. It's quite an interesting journey. You may be familiar with it. His name is Hugh van Cuylenburg. He is the founder of the Resilience Project. He's the host of the Imperfects podcast. He has rolled out a program that's in, I believe, nearly 1,000 schools around the country. Also a keen runner, was a cricketer. It's quite a journey, and it's a very interesting story. And we're very thankful you could stop into Betoota and join us today, Hugh.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm such a massive fan.
I wanted to know, in your own words, how you describe the Resilience Project and what it is.
So Resilience Project, basically, I'll try and do the elevator pitch for it. Do you know the other day I actually did an elevator pitch in an elevator?
No way.
Someone asked me about the Resilience Project in the elevator, and I said to them, I'm doing an elevator pitch in an elevator. And they went, what? So I didn't get it. But anyway, so a really happy childhood. Like, we were so blessed to have one of those childhoods. Idyllic. My memories of my childhood is, I got a younger sister, younger brother, mum and dad, and we, in the summer, we'd play cricket and just have barbecues in the backyard. And in the winter, it was playing footy, Aussie rules, because it was in Melbourne. And that's kind of my memories of my childhood. It was just blissful. And when my sister was 14 and I was 16, she developed a mental illness, anorexia nervosa eating disorder. And it just ravaged it. I mean, it ravaged the family, really. If you are close to someone with a mental illness, or you yourself struggle with a mental illness, you'll know it doesn't just affect you, it's the people around you. And when my sister was 18 years old, she was admitted to hospital. And I remember that was her first night in hospital with this eating disorder. And I remember that night, it was mum, dad, my brother, Josh, who's on our podcast, and myself, and we were sitting around the dinner table, and my dad was doing the dishes, and I asked him a question he didn't answer. And so I asked him again, he didn't answer. I turned around to see why not. I'll never forget the silhouette of my dad slumped over the kitchen sink, just in tears. He was crying. And I'd never seen my dad cry before. I was 20. I'd never seen Dad cry before. And that was the moment I think I became really fascinated with the question, what is it that makes people happy? I knew I couldn't fix my sister in that moment, but I did want to know what do I do to help mum and dad feel happy? And as the older sibling, sometimes you feel like
you're responsible.
Yes, it is my job to fix everything here. And my little brother Josh, he was 13. I mean, that's. I was like, this can't happen to him. He's about to have the best years of his life. And I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. And I went to primary school teaching, thinking, well, if I'm a primary school teacher, very naively and stupidly, I thought, I'll just teach kids, and then they won't get a mental illness. Which I remember my first day in front of this class going, right, how do I stop these kids getting a mental illness? Yeah, I had no idea. Fast forward another 5 years, I found myself volunteering as a school teacher in India in the desert. No running water, no electricity, no beds. And I remember thinking, I arrived there and thought, actually, this is too full on. I said to the school, I'll be there for 2 weeks. And I said to them on night one, I said, actually meant 2 nights. I'll be here for 2 nights. And they looked so disappointed, but not surprised. And the next day I was teaching these kids. It was going to be my first and last day in this school as a volunteer teacher in the middle of the desert. I remember sitting there looking at these kids thinking, never in my life have I ever seen joy like this before. Never. And these are kids who have nothing to call their own. Some of them don't have shoes. They've got one pair of clothes. They're covered in dirt, and we're in the middle of the desert. So anyway, I ended up staying for 3.5 months in this village, living there, because I was like, I need to work out, what do they do? What do these people do every day that we are not doing? Why are these people so happy? And I sort of made observations and lived there and followed them around, these kids, which sounds very creepy. I didn't literally follow them around, but watched them very closely, which also doesn't sound great. But yeah, I came back to Australia and put together this program based on what I'd seen in this village. Turns out all the stuff they do, practicing gratitude, empathy and mindfulness, is very heavily research-based. It turns out there's decades and decades of research screaming at us in Australia. If we want to feel happier, if we want to improve our mental health, or we want to cope better in a challenging time, we've got to start practicing gratitude, empathy, mindfulness. So that's that would be a very long elevator ride. If that was an elevator pitch.
Well, we're going to the 42nd floor. In the
we're stuck.
Betoota Advocate
Unfortunately, you
newsroom,
guys are stuck in the elevator,
Yeah.
But that's sort of what we do. That's what we teach. And then the podcast came from that. And so that's the long answer.
I love the story. A lot of people might not be familiar with it, but the story of Stanson, the kid who made quite an impression on you when you were in India. Yeah,
so this one kid, when I say I was sort of whizzing past the details, but one of the kids in this classroom, he was the one I was actually just thinking, this kid stuns. I've never seen joy like this before. He was the one that he was one who inspired me the most, because he just never stopped smiling. For example, whenever he saw something he was grateful for, he just stopped and pointed to it. I was trying to teach some conversation English. I'd never really spoken English before, and they found out if English is your third language, it's very hard to pronounce the TH sound. So they would make a D noise instead. So he would point to stuff he was grateful for and go, "Hey sir, this," and I'm talking about his shoes. Like he'd put his shoes on and go, "Sir, this." His toes were sticking, 3 centimetres out the end of his shoes. He'd cut the end off because he couldn't afford to buy new shoes. But he's pointing at his shoes going, "This." What he was saying was, how lucky am I to have shoes on my feet. Wow. Lunchtime would come around. A handful of the kids couldn't afford to bring lunch, so they just got given rice every day. Nothing else, just rice. He'd walk past me with his cup of rice. "Hey, sir, this." What he was saying was, how lucky am I? I get rice here every single day. So he made a huge impact on me. He was also the kindest. I've never met a person as kind as this kid. He had nothing to call his own, nothing that we would consider valuable, but I still don't think I've ever met a happier person. And I think a big part of that was he was so kind to other people. He's always looking out for other people, and he was so good at paying attention to the stuff that he did have.
And that diss, people might have seen it. It's filtered into throughout, I guess, the school system, the sporting world, the Queensland Maroons, our great football team here, celebrating after their last series win with a bit of diss. Billy Slater, I think, is he a friend of yours?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. So Billy, it's so funny how I've ended up working. So being from Melbourne, I'm very much AFL, and I don't really know the rules of NRL still, even though I've worked with every club now in the NRL. Billy said, "Would you like to come and work with?" This is how little I knew about Queensland. Billy said, "I'd love you to work with the Queensland side for the upcoming series." And he said, "We could do this, you could do that." And I said, "Yeah, sounds good." And I said, "But my one thing is I need to know the coach is invested in it. I mean, is the coach going to buy into this?" And he went, "I'm the coach." Like I just had no idea. That's how little I know about it. So
one of the greatest to ever do it for Queensland.
Oh my gosh, yeah, totally. And so I told the diss story. I remember on my first session with the Queensland boys, and it was just everything for the rest of the camp was just diss. Like every time something good happened, it was just diss. And then as soon as the game 1 victory we had, it was just everything was just diss. And it was beautiful to see these boys.
Yeah.
I remember saying to them in camp I think it was the first session I ran with them, I just said, "Hey, put your hand up if you as a kid grew up wanting to play footy for Queensland." And every single hand went up. And I said, "Just look what you're doing." Like, I mean, you are living your dream right now, and not many people around the world can actually honestly say, "I'm living my dream right now."
Well, it's stopping to smell the roses, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is.
This sounds like I'm going off track, but I remember watching a Jim Jeffries stand-up routine.
Yeah.
And he was talking about once he would tell himself, okay, when I reach this level in my career, I'm going to be happy. It's like, when I get to sell out an audience, I'll be happy. He did that, and then after that, he's like, "Nah, got to move the bar up. I'm gonna have to sell out all of Australia, and then I'll be happy." Kept moving the bar up until he's worth millions. And he's like, "I'm not happy because I keep finding a new bar."
Yeah.
So I feel like it's interesting sometimes just that people who have less can be happy because they're not comparing themselves.
That's so true.
It's living in the moment a bit more.
Yeah, and that's actually, the psychologists will call that the if and then model of happiness. If this happens, then I feel happy. If I buy this car, then I feel happy. You buy a nice new car, it feels good for a bit. 6 months later, someone drives past on a nicer car.
With a better car. And you're like, well, now I need to get
Yeah, if I had that car, then I'd feel happy. So I didn't know he'd said that, but that's the perfect example. Example, yeah.
How do you go with that on a personal level? I understand you'd be working on it all the time, but if you look at the if and then model, you seem to be constantly achieving and constantly, kicking goals and moving forward, and Resilience Project goes from strength to strength. You're working with all the teams. You're working, I'm assuming, with idols in terms of cricket players and organisations and all that sort of stuff. How do you stay, I guess, grounded and practice gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness in your everyday life?
That's a great question. I think I'm doing okay with it because you can get caught. When I started the Resilience Project, no one was interested. I'd call schools and say, would you like to come? I can come and talk. And I'd go, sorry, who are you? And then I remember thinking if I could just have 5 schools on my books that I could do every year, I'd be happy. And then, I'd feel content and and then we ended up with 5. And then I was like, no, it needs to be 20. And then, we had a meeting yesterday with our staff and we're like, well, do we want to cap this? Like we've got 1,062 schools around Australia doing the program this year. Now, if I just went back 5 years, that would absolutely blow my mind. Like, that's amazing. But I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, no, I think if we could get to 1,500 schools, that'd be that enough. So I think we constantly do it as human beings. We're just constantly, we need to get better at just stopping and smelling the roses and going, this is, right now, this is great. One of the ways that really helps me, we got 3 kids under the age of 7, and every night around the dinner table, we will ask them the question, what went well for you today? Well, for young kids, we'll say, what was your favourite thing that happened today? And as part of doing that activity, we have to kind of model it to them. So my wife and I will join in as well. And that actually really helps you just to count the little wins along the way. And I think the more you pick up on little wins, because we're surrounded by them. Like, we live in Australia, my God, for all the shit that's going on in the world right now, to live in Australia not for everyone, but to live in Australia for a lot of people, it's like you've won the lottery, honestly. Like, we've hit the jackpot. But we don't pay attention to the good stuff. We're so easily seduced by the negative things happening around us. We've got to get better at just stopping and paying attention to the good stuff. And when you, every night, however you do it, if you've got kids, like we've got 3 young kids, at the dinner table amongst the absolute utter shit show that is getting them to the dinner table and trying to get them to bed, to have 20 seconds where everyone says their favourite thing that happened during the day, you sort of, it's training your brain to scan the world for the good stuff. Billy Slater, I mentioned Billy, is amazing at this. Like, he is, for someone who has achieved everything there is to achieve in his profession and beyond, he is so good at just stopping and paying attention to the good stuff that happens. And he's so good at paying attention to the good stuff that happens within his squad. So and celebrating small stuff. So I think that really helps the Queensland guys. I have to say, just a quick story on Billy Slater. So for someone I don't know the rugby league at all, this is a massive tangent, but I just thought of it just then. I remember game 1 for my first year with them on the game day. I was like, hey, where do I go during the game? Do I just sit in the crowd, or do I where's my spot? And he goes, I'd like you in the coach's box. And I went, oh, okay. I won't be on television, will I? And he goes, oh, it's possible. And I went, I don't want to be, please, and he goes, yeah, you can, I'm sure we can find a spot for you, won't be seen. And so we go up, the security takes us up there, and it was full on, we get into it's a small coach's box. In AFL, there's 10 coaches in there.
Yeah.
There was 4 of us. There was Billy Slater, Matt Ballon, Josh Hannay and myself.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
And I'm right behind Billy. And I'm like, oh, fucking hell, the camera's going to be on him. So I was sitting down as low as I could in my chair so I couldn't be seen. Anyway, I don't know the rules of rugby league. And there was a point where, so Matt Ballon listens to the umpires and he can hear what the umpires are doing. Josh Hannay's talking to the assistant coaches and Billy goes, what's the tackle count, please? Just to all of us as coaches. Well, I'm not a coach, but I'm in there. And the other 2 are preoccupied with their jobs. And Billy goes, tackle count. And he turned around and looked at me and I went, 3? He goes, actually, and I went, yep. No, I made that up. I'm so sorry. Please don't ask me questions. It was so fucking stressful.
Put on the spot too.
Oh, massively. And it was such an intense moment of the game. I don't know why I made it up. I just made it. I was like,
It would have been great if it had been 3.
Yeah, it wasn't though.
Yeah.
Because he spun around and goes, really?
Yeah.
No, I made it up. I made that up. I don't know why. I'm so sorry.
That is a high pressure situation. I find you Melburnians so funny not knowing the rules to rugby league, because I think it's one of the simplest games there is. You get your tackles, you kick the ball at the end, knock-ons here and there. I find Victorian leg tennis particularly hard to understand. Sometimes I watch and the decisions I'm like, all right, I'm going to need that one explained. I'm sure Melburnians probably think the same thing about us simple Queenslanders. But
I have watched so many games now and I still don't know what's going on. And I have to act like even though they know I don't know, I still have to make noises. Like in the coach's box, when something happens and they all make a noise, I have to join in with the noise. So if they'll go, oh, what? I go, oh, no, damn it. I'm like, what just happened? I'm just making up noises here.
Just say, fuck ref.
Yeah.
That's it. Were there any eagle-eyed viewers who spotted you as a new assistant coach of the Maroons during that TV
I had
box
some of the
appearance?
I had some of the funniest things. Adelaide Oval, we had to walk across the field and we have to walk through the you have to walk through the crowd to get to the coach's box. That was my first experience of understanding how vitriolic and how passionate both sides of supporters are. We walked through a contingent of just Blues.
Yeah.
And the stuff that people were yelling at me, it was mainly like, "Get fuck you, Billy. Get fucked, Billy. Get fucked, Queensland. Who the fuck are you?" And then just pointing at me so aggressive, and they're going, I won't say exactly the same, but, "Oh, you.
Yep.
Who the fuck do you think you are? You're a fucking no one." And for some reason, I was engaging with it. I was like, the others just were used to it. They're putting their head. I was going, I know. I'm actually not really. I haven't
I'm a
actually.
really nice guy if you got to know me.
Like, no, I don't even know the rules. Anyway, I haven't.
But I'm grateful for you noticing me.
Yeah. So anyway, I absolutely copped it, and it was and I remember sitting down in the box. First 10 minutes of the game, I'm just trying to gather myself, going, I've just been abused by so many people, and I don't know why I'm so upset by it because I didn't even know who I was. It was just the colour of my top. But anyway.
Yeah. That'll do it. That'll do it on
Caxton
Origin
Street.
night.
Origin, if there's a Blues jersey going through Caxton Street, it's not fun.
Caxton Street, what a thing that is. So after game, I can't remember what it was, last year after we won the Origin, we were heading back to the hotel and we were going down Caxton Street and Billy goes, "No, fuck it, we're going to the Caxton." And I was like, "What? Sorry, what are we doing? What's the?" And he goes, "We're going to that pub." And I went, "What, now?" And he goes, "Yeah, mate, we used to do this all the time. It was like the best thing. We're going to do it again." And I went, "We can't, like, they can't." What are you
So
talking
that
about?
was a spur of the moment thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got off the bus and we walked through, I was like, this is a disaster. Like, they're in the middle of the public.
Yeah.
The public have been drinking all day. And I was like saying that to security, he goes, "Mate, they love these boys. Like, there's no one from New South Wales here." And I was like, "Oh, I guess so." It was the most, I felt like I'm waving at the crowd as I go past.
There's a sense of camaraderie on
it is.
Caxton Street, and there's not as many journalists looking to bring certain people down.
If there were journalists there, I reckon they would just be like, "Hey, have a great night. Like, you've
have
won,
a
you
great
deserve
night."
it. I've got the night off, you've got the night off."
Yeah, and the wonderful establishment that is the Caxton Hotel, they tend to look after players as
They
well. But I
really
didn't
do.
realise. I thought that was maybe a function that had been organised. I didn't realise it was just Billy saying, "Let's go."
No, I just wanted to
Living in
revisit
the
the old
moment.
days of you know what, this is. I remember he walked us. Sorry, this is becoming about Queensland State of Origin, but I remember I opened Camp 1 a couple of years ago, the talk, and then Billy said, "Now we're going to walk down to Suncorp from the W Hotel," and I was looking at Google Maps, going, "It's a 30-minute walk. We've got buses here. Why aren't we getting the bus?" And then as we were walking through the streets of Brisbane, I realised why he was doing it, and it was just to remind the boys of like how much this means to the people of Brisbane, and it was really cool. Just people running up and just like, "Love you, Cam, love you," like whoever, they were just absolutely loving it. So
Yeah, special. Seems
sorry,
like-
I've just turned this into
that's
rugby league
fantastic.
stuff.
Well, look, we can go on all day with Queensland Origin stories, but it seems like sports players in particular are very receptive to the messages of the Resilience Project. And obviously, I mean, a part of that would be the fact that they get paid a few $100,000 a year to run around after a ball and do what they love, right?
Yeah.
The very definition of what they love. Some guys seem to fall out of love with the game, but it sounds like you're able to show them, how good it really is to be playing sport for a living. Do you think that's why they're so receptive to your message?
I've thought about this so much. I remember the first elite sporting club I did was the Melbourne Storm, and I didn't really know. I recognised Billy and Cam, but I didn't know who anyone else was. So I went in there and I thought, this won't work. This is a session for school kids, really. And Billy actually stopped me 5 minutes in, and he said, he goes, "Hey mate," and he put his hand up and I went, "Yes, Mr. Slater." And he said, he goes, "This is fucking awesome. Keep going." I was like, well, I wasn't going to stop, but I wasn't finished.
Thanks, Billy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I remember the look on his face, and a couple of guys had their iPads with them because it was NBA playoff time, and they were like, there was a game on, and I was like, oh, how am I going to? And the iPads went down within 30 seconds, and they were so in. And I remember thinking, gosh, they really need this. And ever since, I've been blown away by. Well, I think I'm kind of used to it now, but I think elite sports people, their whole life has been from a very young age. It's like it kind of becomes a bit more than I'm doing what I love. It's like, this is my career, and my career is on a knife edge, and it can be taken away from me at any moment.
I don't know a lot about sports, but I watched the David Beckham documentary. I didn't realise.
You were watching for the sports as well, weren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It had nothing to do with how gorgeous young David Beckham was. But I didn't realise, I had never really thought about it how stressful it is to be in a team and representing a country, and he would have had to be resilient because he copped it. Like how, I don't know how, like at age 23, having people shout, you know, death threats and burning an effigy of you because you made a mistake in a match. Like I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I think both sides of the fence don't focus on that. I mean, if you play for a football team, by virtue of who you play for, 17 other, if there's 18 teams, whatever it is, 17 other, lots of supporters hate you just because of the colour of your jumper. And that's not a nice feeling to have people you don't know hate you when you're walking around like, does this person hate me? Do they love me because of who I play for? That's their life. That's what they live. They also know if they're injured badly, their career's gone overnight. If they don't play well for a few games, the anxiety of getting dropped, and then, but we look at it and going, you're playing, like, you get to play sport. You get paid to play sport. Like, that's a dream. Like, that's amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of these players, I hope the gratitude part helps them to fall back in love with the sport a little bit, or their life and what they're actually doing. I hope. I don't know what it is. It's older players tend to gravitate towards it. Like the younger boys enjoy it. It's because I try and make it a very fun and funny session. But I think the older players really get it. Yeah, they really warm to it.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about how kids receive it as well, because I would assume the older players have experienced a little bit more. You know, they've stopped to smell the roses a few more times. With kids, are kids generally receptive to it, or do they? You know, do you get difficult groups? How kind of open are they to
like
it?
Like the naughty boys in the back of the class.
As kids with, like, they obviously all have lived experience, but they may not have an awareness of their surroundings as much.
So I have so many stories on this. So our presenters at Resilience Park, I mean, for a long time it was just me and this other guy, Martin Heppel, and he's the best in the world at presenting to kids. He's extraordinary. One of the things, so I remember being, again, up in Queensland with, as a cluster of schools. So we had, I think it was 5 schools from all around Townsville high schools coming to this like huge stadium where we'd present. There's like 14, 15, 16-year-old boys. And girls, but what we would usually do is we sort of sit back and we watch everyone get off the bus, we watch them come in, we'll talk to the teachers about who the difficult kids are, and we'll go and engage them before the talk starts. So we'll go over and hang out with them and just, I mean, if someone's coming to do a talk and you're a naughty kid, you're like, oh, I'm going to own this person.
Here we go.
Yeah, but as soon as you chat to them and listen to them before the session starts and just like hear them out, they're just like, oh, this person's not too bad. Yeah. The older I get, the harder it has become to do that. But when I started, I was like 27, 28, so it was like only 10 years away from them. It gets harder and harder the older you get, but just put your cap backwards and say bro and
hello,
stuff.
fellow kids.
Yeah.
Do you know the slang? Do you know what Riz means?
No, what does Riz mean?
Riz, it's short for charisma. So if somebody's like really good with the ladies, he's got Riz.
Oh, so would I say like, hey dude,
have you
nice
got Riz?
Riz?
Yeah. Riz game's strong, man.
I open with the story of my little sister, and Martin opens with a story that's pretty full on for him to tell as well. And I think as soon as anyone gets up in stage in front of a group of people, no matter who the kids are, what age they are, what demographic, what background, as soon as they are making themselves vulnerable with a story that's quite hard to tell. I've presented at juvenile detention centres and all that kind of stuff. I've never had a group who don't go, oh, this guy's telling us something that's pretty hard to tell, so he obviously trusts us. I think they don't intellectualize that, but they're thinking at a subconscious level, this guy trusts us, so I trust him, and I think that's how it works. But I had a FaceTime call in the car on the way here with a group of, there's a school in South Australia. We work with one of our school partnership managers over there. Apparently it's the only vision impaired primary school in Australia, and they're doing our program, and they were doing these Braille worksheets for the Resilience Project, which is just beautiful, and they were telling us what they love about the Resilience Project most. So I mean, we got over 1,000 schools now. I find it very moving, the different groups of kids around Australia who are doing this every single day.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I feel like we could go on for hours here, but unfortunately, we're getting the knock on the glass from the Desert Rock FM studio producers, and we have to wrap this chat up, Hugh. But I think there's probably a part 2 and a part 3 coming up at some point in the near future. But thank you so much for stopping in to talk to us today and sharing some insights and some stories, and particularly some Queensland origin stories as well. As I said at the top of the episode, I love the Betoota Advocate so much. It's got me through some very dark times, and it's like my
when I'm on Instagram, it's the one that I cannot, like my algorithm knows that he will not be able to say no to Betoota Advocate.
Yeah.
It's always if you press like, when your search comes up and it's like, it's so revealing what your algorithm is.
Yeah.
For me, it's like Betoota Advocate, Brett Lee in swingers, and getting snakes out of people's homes. They're the three things that Instagram knows I cannot say no to.
I think Brett Lee in swingers should be above us, but I'm happy to be above the snakes in people's homes.
Mine's dogs with human eyes. Because I keep clicking on them because they're so weird. And
Yeah.
Well, like people have photoshopped them in, or
like,
actually looks like.
there's specific poodle breeds where they have eerily human eyes, and I'm fascinated by that.
Unbelievable. I feel like that could be a podcast in itself. Like
Yeah.
it's the most vulnerable thing you do to go, get out your phone
Yeah.
and
What is
just
the
click on
algorithm?
search, and what is it like? It's pretty revealing.
It says everything about a person.
It really does. It really does.
Well, thank you very much, Hugh. Thanks for the kind words, and you've got a lot of people out of a lot of very difficult times as well. So I know a lot of people appreciate your work. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.